Welcome, everybody. This is OPSRC's first Tech Titans webinar, and we have Vicki Davis here, the Cool Cat teacher, to do our first presentation. I'll turn it over to her so she can introduce herself and get started.
Yes, thanks for having me, Kurt. I'm really excited to be here for many reasons. So this has been a crazy year for me. I know that all of us, the last few years have been kind of interesting, but I broke my foot and I've only been walking again for 3 or 4 months, and I haven't been able to get out and present. So you guys, I've created a new presentation for all of you, 5 fantastic strategies to level up learning in life. I am a classroom teacher. This is year 21 for me. I teach computer science. I teach computer apps. I teach digital film, keyboarding, and I'm instructional technology director for the whole school. So I work with technology integration from K all the way through 12th. We're a bring your own device school for 6th through 12. We have Chromebook labs for 1st through 5th. We have 1 lab, and then we have 1 rolling cart. And then we have a Kindle program for our kindergartners. So I work with a lot of different tech. I'm going to fire up the presentation here and get us going. And so we're going to hold on. I'm not sharing my screen. Let me do that and share the screen. You get to see me rafting for just a moment. And here we go. So we're going to talk about 5 fantastic strategies to level up learning in life. Now, the best way to ask questions is, of course, I believe the chat is open. Is that right, Kurt? The chat is open, and I'm sure you'll be checking that, right, Kurt?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I'll check on that. Yeah.
Good. But you can find me everywhere on Cool Cat Teacher, and you might be wondering, why is she showing a turtle and she's Cool Cat Teacher? Doesn't she know what a cat looks like? Yes, I have one. But we'll learn here in just a moment why I have a turtle on here. So the 5 strategies that we're going to be digging into today, along with a ton of apps. So I always like to give you lots and lots of ideas for apps. And so Donna says she has no sound, Kurt. I don't know if you can help her troubleshoot that. Or you can type in the chat what she can do to fix that for her. So we're going to talk about formative assessment and using it constantly. We're going to talk about experimenting with AI tools to teach. This is a big buzzword. We also need to talk about ethics. So we'll be discussing that. We'll talk about personal interest projects, which I think are vital for every single class, and it really helps students have a reason to want to come to school. We'll talk about using games to teach. This is one of the great things that's actually come out of the pandemic. The games have leveled up in their ability to do formative assessment, to give feedback to teachers, and to really give us the data we need to have data-driven instruction that actually means something. So I'll talk about that. And then I'll give you my personal strategy for innovation that I teach my teachers, called Innovate Like a Turtle. And that's why we have the turtle there. So let's dive in. Also, I want to mention that Kurt has asked that we have this recorded. It will be posted to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/CoolCatTeacher. You can find me everywhere at Cool Cat Teacher. And we'll also post these slides if you miss some of those links. So first, we're going to talk about formative assessment and using it constantly. As educators, we know what summative assessment is. That's the quiz in the chapter or the end of chapter test. But really, we need to be assessing learning as you are teaching. So what has happened, I found in the past, let's say when I'm teaching binary numbers, which is one of the most difficult things I teach in my senior level computer science class. It took me 2 weeks to teach binary numbers. That's because 2 or 3 would understand right from the beginning. They would raise their hands. They would answer all the questions. I would think I was a great teacher until I gave the quiz. I gave the quiz, 2 kids might pass it. Everybody else would fail. And I would realize I had a lot of reteaching to do. This would go back and forth. I would throw out the first 3 or 4 quizzes. Finally, I would get where students were in the 90% range, which is my goal as a teacher, is that my class averages for all tests will be in the 90% range. And my goal is also that I won't have any students fail. So I'm always working with those students to try to help them learn. Well, now that I have formative assessment, I can now teach to this level in 3 days. I can have all my students at A levels within 3 days, which is pretty astounding to me. So let's talk about some of the ways we can do formative assessment. So first of all, these are from Pear Deck. And just asking kids how they're feeling. This is in a lot of tools. You have to turn it on. But it's good to kind of see, how are students feeling today? And you can look at the work students are doing and see their mood feedback inside Pear Deck. So this is an example of formative assessment. In this case, we are not assessing the knowledge, we're actually assessing how are students feeling at this moment. So that'll help us as we have our instruction. So we also can add a reflection to every assessment. So this is at the end of a WISER certificate, a WISER, I guess you could call them worksheet, but to call them a worksheet is disservice. It's a truly differentiated instruction tool. They call it digital worksheets, but every single assignment that I do has feedback in it. So I teach students to do private comments. How was the learning for this particular assignment? Did you learn? Do you feel comfortable with it? Wiser, I have them do reflections. You can do classroom climate in Pear Deck. So these are all tools that you can use to give feedback. This is an example of what they have in Pear Deck. How did it go? Up or down? And you can see how they feel about that particular lesson. And then this is what you get at the end of the lesson in Pear Deck. You can see how they feel about the lesson and what is their mood, which kind of helps you as you work with those students. Now, the other thing I do formatively is after we come back from every single break, I ask students how they're doing and how are you doing last week? And what's the biggest change from this week and last week? That way I can see as a student, glad to be back, not glad to be back. Is there anything I need to know about? And that really helps us to understand where the students are. As I always say, you have to relate to educate. So we need to know where students are and how they feel. And so the fourth thing that I do in terms of emotional type check-ins is that students know that at any point they can write me an anonymous note, leave it on my desk if it concerns them or someone in the class. And it hasn't happened a lot, but it has helped me. For example, I had one student who was struggling with and actually left her name back when we were still wearing masks and kind of right in the middle of returning back to school with a pandemic, who admitted that she was depressed and didn't really want to be here in the world. And so I was able to get that student help. So this policy of allowing anonymous notes has really probably even saved lives. And so then we get into other tools that kind of help us understand better what they're actually learning. So a learning journal, this is a fantastic tool that you can use, and you can do it in Google Docs. This is an example of how you can set that up. And you have different journal entries where students are journaling about what they are learning. So this is a great tool. And if you scan them, you can see how students are doing. But then you can also do things. There's so many wonderful tools now for student read alouds. You've got Fluency Tutor, you've got Seesaw, you've got lots of tools that allow students to read for you. There's also Readly. Readly is a new one from Harvard researchers I've done some work for recently. They're fantastic. So if you have students who recite the ABCs at your desk or count to 10 or read pieces of chapters, you should really look at some of the tools that allow the students to read to you and you to provide oral and written feedback. It can really save you a lot of time, and it also gives great formative feedback. There's also Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle is a great tool because it lets you use the flipped classroom method, but I'm really more a fan of what I call the in-flip method. So I sort of clone myself, and the students are all going through the material in Edpuzzle, and they are, for example, instead of point and click teaching, if I'm teaching Adobe Premiere Pro, they may actually go into the video, watch the video, and I'll go around and help them with any special issues. But I can also put multiple choice questions, open-ended questions. They can ask me questions inside the video. I like to clip the parts I want in the video and cut the other parts out. I do like to turn off skipping, and this also gives accountability. I would not do a video without doing Edpuzzle because I have to know that the students can see that. Now, Nearpod also has a feature in it, which is a lot like Edpuzzle, which lets you have the video and lets you have the questions inside the video. I can also go in and see, what do I need to reteach, and look at that formative data inside the tool as they're watching and using videos. Now, Nearpod is one of my favorites. This is some data from so this is homecoming week. It's kind of a crazy week, but I have my students with a big vocabulary test tomorrow, my senior computer science level class. And so I've been having them play game kits, which they love to play. And I could go in and I can look at how our students doing. Well, this is also inside Nearpod as I teach it and I ask the questions in little games inside Nearpod. I can look back and I can see what are the questions my students are missing and what do I need to review. So after I teach a lesson, instead of a ticket to leave, I will look at what did they miss, and that'll be the beginning of the lesson for the next day. So I'm informing my teaching. It's formative assessment. And I hope that you all will participate in formative assessment, because I hope you will share in the chat anything that you do in your class that relates to this, or anything you'd like to add. Please share your other tools, and that gives me feedback. I'm used to feedback, so obviously Zoom is not entirely my favorite unless I have people chatting in the back channel. So please feel free to do that. I know you have Kashawn, who's very knowledgeable, and we'll talk about his tech talks that he does. And he has a lot of knowledge on this. So you can also see this is the vocab games that they've been playing, and I can see the topics that students need to review. And Kim says her students also love GiveKit. And you know what? They keep coming out with new games. They have a new game called Farmtopia. They like Fishtopia. They like Capture the Flag. They all like that sort of thing. So here's another piece of formative assessment is look at work students are doing as they write and leave verbal feedback. If students struggle with writing, they also probably struggle with reading. And when we write the feedback, we're hitting students where they are the weakest. And also they don't get our verbal intonations and all of the feedback that they get from us. So I think every writing teacher should leave verbal feedback in the writing that students do. So you can do that in Kaizena, you can do it in Mote, you can do it also with the next free tool, which is Read and Write for Google. You can do that with 1-minute voice comments. You just hit the button and use the tool. Remember, if you use Read and Write toolbar, if you activate it, you can use it free for teachers. And you can do little short comments, which really 1-minute comments are the best anyway. And they just click the little button and they can listen to it. So I also like the formative feedback inside Wiser. It's like differentiated worksheets, but it's even, like I said, I hate to call it worksheets. I've written about it before, and there's a lot of ways you can give feedback in here. So you can grade it, it can auto grade it, but you can record videos, you can record audio, you can give text feedback. There's all kinds of feedback you can give students, and they can also get immediate feedback as well. Now, if you have iExcel, there is a new mode that a lot of teachers aren't aware of called live mode, and it is fantastic. So for example, when you teach a math and they work a problem, if they all work the same problem, you will have Johnny peek over at Susie's answer and write that answer down quickly. And the teacher has to work the whole room and see how they do. Well, when you use iExcel, which does cost money, for this version, and you put it in live mode, you put the standard, each student gets a different problem, and it actually flags you and it tells you which students need help. It is a great tool. It works for grammar and for math. And so look for tools that give you that formative feedback that lets you go immediately to the student. The other tool I use, Socrative or Socrative, I'm not sure which way they say it. I use this very heavily to teach my binary numbers. A lot of math teachers love it. And what I like about it is while students are taking a practice quiz or practice test or just working problems for me, it will highlight for me the student and which problems they're getting wrong. And I can immediately get up and go help that student. Fantastic tool. And you get, I think, 10 or 15 quizzes free. So that's usually enough for most people to be able to do that. Now, there's a lot of other tools out there. Again, I will be giving you the the link to this so you can go and look at all these tools. But there is a question tool inside Google Classroom. There's also Google Forms, which I already talked about. There's Go Formative. Assessments is something that my friend Casey Bell has talked about that I've got to check out, but she says it's incredible for math. So this is on my formative assessment big three list to check out. And you'll learn in a moment what the big three is, because it's actually very important. Explain everything. Students can record how they work math problems or how they do things. You've got Flipgrid, which are great for book talks and book conversations, getting feedback there. Insert Learning is another one that I've learned about recently that is a Chrome extension, and it turns any page into an interactive lesson that gives immediate feedback. So if you have a web page, think about it guiding a student through the web page, almost like Edpuzzle is to videos. Insert Learning is for a web page. You've got Padlet, which lets you have sort of like a board where you can have conversations, a whiteboard, kind of like Jamboard, Google Jamboard. I could have put that on this list too. And then something that my teachers who use the Chromebook cart but don't have access to a lab love is Plickers. So you can print those out, they can hold up the cards, and you can have immediate formative feedback. Whatever you do, you have got to have a tool that you can go to daily in your toolkit for formative assessment feedback. This is the big thing to remember with technology. Let it do what it does best and let you do what you do best. While I know a lot of people really like Ticket to Leave and that sort of thing, it's a whole lot of paper. And I used to lose those index cards or lose those pieces of paper. I had trouble putting it back together and assessing it. But now that I've gone digital, basically with my Tickets to Leave and seeing what they know, I have an immediate starting point for my next day's class. So formative assessment, I literally use every day, anytime I'm teaching new content, use it all the time. So it's my first strategy, and it's one of the most important to be a modern day teacher. Remember, you do not have to grade formative assessment. In fact, I don't think you should. I don't give a test until I know students are going to be at that 90% range. A test should never be a surprise. You should know what students are doing. So now we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, which is basically anything that has an algorithm. And I'm going to kind of share 7 things. My slides change a little bit. I put together some of this and I'm starting to talk about it. I talked about it at ISTE when I presented online. I had a little tiny 5-minute, which was a lot of fun. So first, if you want to keep up with the change that's happening, I recommend this book, The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter H. Diamandis. He has read it on YouTube. So you can actually listen to this book on YouTube. I really recommend this book for anybody in technology to pick it up to see where it's going. So they predict that in the next 10 years, we will have 400 years worth of technology change, because what's happening is AI is merging with every other field and change is becoming exponential. I'm not saying that to stress everybody out. I'm just saying it so we understand that changes needs to be part of what we do, which is why the innovate like a turtle strategy is so important. I'm going to share at the end, because we all need to have a philosophy of learning new things. So AI can be a great tool. This summer, because I work all summer as the IT director for my school, I was testing the Motion app. And basically, I was able to put all of my appointments in, and I prioritized my tasks, and it was sort of like my executive functioning. So it helped me figure out what to do next. It was amazing how much work I got done. Now, it was only as good as I programmed it to be, but it's a great example of a tool to help humans with executive functioning. Now that I'm back in school and I teach 5 classes a day, and I don't have a lot of choice in my schedule, I've deactivated it temporarily, but probably it's going to be a tool I use in the summer. And it's a great example of an AI tool used for tasks. It can also save you time. So there is a tool called Descript. and it is a game changer for audio and video. So this is an example of a podcast that I pulled into Descript. And if you look at the bottom, it has taken my words, my audio words, and it's moved it into text up at the top. If I edit the text at the top, it deletes the word in the audio file, which is incredible. It also works for video. Now, I spent about an hour and a half training my voice inside Descript because sometimes with my podcast, I might want to just change a word or two, and I would have to go back and re-record those words. Well, now that I have trained and given permission for Descript to use my voice for only for me, I can type in the words that I want myself to say, and it puts my words in there. You could say I'm deep faking myself, but I actually believe that when I use this, I should disclose that I'm using it. So this particular podcast, I did disclose that I was using an AI programmed version of myself, but you really couldn't tell it was there. A lot of AI actors are being used for film, and AI recordings are being used for audiobooks. Audible is the only one that doesn't allow AI bots for their books, but they're everywhere else that they're being used. And so this is a game changer for audio and video editing. And I do believe you'll see it used in schools a lot more because it really makes editing a snap. And it is a game changer, and you can test it out for free. But look at Grammarly here, for example. This is already an AI tool. Now, it's not as helpful if it's just the free version, but I use the pro version for me, and I purchased it for my own students. And we're looking at this for our whole school for next year because in the moment, this is just in time learning. It is teaching students in the moment how you do each thing. So I actually will not accept anything turned into me that has not been spell checked. If it's a big project, I'll have them run it through Grammarly Pro or through Pro Writing Aid. So Pro Writing Aid is a great tool. The Hemingway app is a great tool. And these are all tools that can have AI capabilities to coach in the moment. So again, let technology do what it does best, and then you do what you do best. I have did a great test a few years ago with a company called UScience. And I found that I actually fatigue very rapidly when I'm grading grammar and spelling. So what it means is the first few kids I grade are graded really hard. And the last kids I grade, I miss a lot of things. So I don't grade unless I use an AI helper for me grading as well, because it's not fair to the first kids I grade. When I fatigue like that. And I actually have the statistical validity to show that I do fatigue as a teacher. And I think there have to be others. So we need to let these tools use and help us there. But there are tools like AI composition. Now, I spent some time this summer testing the AI tools that help kids write. So I took this tool called copy.ai, and I used it to help me create a tool about AI. Okay. So the AI was pretty good what it wrote, but here's what you need to know about AI writing tools. And there's a lot of them out there. AI writing tools are pretty good at helping kids generate a paragraph. They are terrible at generating a whole paper. So if you see a paper that doesn't have a lot of flow between paragraphs, start asking questions. We've had discussions with our faculty after testing the AI composition tools about how we feel about AI composition. The fact is, a lot of kids will be using these tools at some point in the future, and will be using it at some point in the future. I'm not going to train AI to write like me, but then again, Google and Outlook are learning to write like me and like you. So we are training bots without knowing it to help duplicate how we write. But AI composition, it's being used by a lot of students. And so I'm always looking for flow. Does it flow? The other thing is these AI tools don't tell us if they are unique from student to student. So if one student types in artificial intelligence and another student types in artificial intelligence, are they going to get the same paper that's created by AI? I do believe if you use AI in composing something, you should disclose it. With exception perhaps of like headlines. I use AI tools to write headlines all the time for my blog. I'm not sure that requires disclosure, but anyway, these are the kind of things we talk about in my classes. So as I experimented with a lot of AI tools this summer, and also researched AI, I found a lot of the things that AI cannot replace. So right now there's 3.5 million robots in the world today. That's expected to grow exponentially. The world of the cobot is here. Students will be working with a cobot, a robot that works alongside a human. But what AI cannot replace is critical thinking, judgment and complex decisions, emotional intelligence and empathy, creativity, collaboration and teamwork, interpersonal skills like listening, adaptability and flexibility, cultural intelligence, ethics, and leadership. And this is from actually a Forbes article that wrote about AI and what it could not replace. Now, let me show you an AI tool that quite a few of us use as we teach poetry. You can pick your 3 muses and they will help you compose poetry. It does take some intelligence to get something out of this, but I did post my first AI poem on my blog this summer, and it's pretty incredible what kind of poetry comes out of this. If you're asking your kids to write a poem, I promise you they are using this AI tool. And it is somewhat original because you write your first line, it helps you generate the others. It's fascinating. So I would use this and then have conversations. One thing that happened this summer, when this first came out, there was not enough diversity at all in these muses, and a lot of folks complained about it. This is one thing that I teach my students about AI. Every AI tool should allow feedback. Every AI tool should allow feedback from humans. This one didn't, and we had to kind of go through Twitter and other ways to complain. But I believe if you've got to get feedback. And yes, Kurt, we would love questions in the chat if you have those. This is an example. I had my students use Notion, which is kind of my replacement for Wiki Spaces. And this was an example of my students and the analysis they wrote, my seniors, about artificial intelligence. And I had them analyze artificial intelligence in a way we used in the Flat Classroom project that I did about 15 years ago. That was in Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat. And we analyzed the impacts of AI along every aspect of society. This is kind of a senior level project and for secondary school, I would think. But there are tools that you can use. There's MIT's AI Ethics for middle school. There's also exploreaiethics.com. And I wanted to just pull up a chart from AI artists of the potential harms of automated decision-making. They've already had to turn off AI bots in New York State, for example, when it found it was discriminatory and men of color were being retained for parole at a much higher rate than others. They've also had AI bots that helped HR managers that had to be turned off because it discriminated against Caucasian males. Okay, so discrimination of all kinds, you cannot institutionalize bias. And that's what happens when you have algorithms study humans. They can, sorry about that, they can institutionalize bias. And so there are a lot of issues that can happen when you start having automated decision-making. So you should have humans review and hold all AI tools accountable, including the AI tools that we use. Very soon, we're going to be using these tools for grading. We're going to be using these tools to help us. And if we can't report that these tools have issues, then we're going to have some real issues. So, for example, you see a lot of phones coming out that are saying they're better with darker skin tones. We had a lot of errors with facial recognition and law enforcement in the early days of facial recognition because of dark skin tones not being captured correctly with photography. So AI technology has got to be held accountable because it can have terrible life-changing consequences if we're not holding it accountable. So we need to experiment with AI tools to teach. It needs to be part of something that we put on our big 3 list that you'll be learning about. And we need to be discussing AI ethics, middle school and up. We will not like the world we inherit if we ignore AI and the ethics of AI, because AI studies humans, AI is artificial, and we're the ones who hold the morals of our society that we would like to perpetuate. So third is personal interests or genius projects. Now, every class I teach, I pull in personal interest projects. They're absolutely vital. Um, I use ebooks right now in my 8th grade. They're writing their own ebook. I'll talk about that in a moment. They create personal websites. Um, we do app creation. Figma is a free site, great site to use for creating apps. Probably for older kids, it's a little tricky to use sometimes. Right now, my 9th graders are inventing a new technology based upon all of the new technologies they've learned about, from human exoskeletons to nanotechnology to 3D printing. We've been studying that, and now they have to invent a new technology, and they're filming that and have to pretend like it exists already. We have genius projects coming up in my 9th grade. And then I have senior capstone projects, which are sort of like a senior level with programming involved genius project. And then we will sometimes have makerspace projects, invention conventions, or innovation week throughout the whole school. So first of all, we use Book Creator, and my students create ebooks on the topic of their choice. They just pitched their topics today. You can see I just grabbed this screenshot today, graded those today. I accepted all of those. They could write about a hobby. I have one student writing about her grandfather and adventures of Albert and all of the adventures her grandfather has had. I have another student writing about a family that was at home in the pandemic and had challenges, and so she's writing about that, and I'm pretty sure that's for personal reasons, and she and I've had some conversations. I've got other students who are writing children's books. I've got one that wants to help teenagers understand a leader's mindset, so he's writing a book about that, and that will teach them how to design their book covers in Canva, which is free for education. Also has announced ways you can write and create presentations in Canva that are also free for schools. So Office 365 and Google have a competitor in Canva. So this is an example of personal websites. And again, you'll be able to dig into my rubric and take a look at those. But these are some of my 8th graders, and they have to build a full personal website. They update it all the way through high school, and then they're able to include that link as they apply for college. This is an example of the digital citizenship website they built in Figma. This was actually an app that ran on iPhones, and they're all linked together. You can see the little buttons at the bottom of each page. Very, very powerful tool. And this was the assignment. Each student had a different job. So we had a project manager, assistant project manager, we had production managers, we had writers, we had graphic designers, people who picked the color scheme, all the different pieces. We had all different jobs. So this was a great way to bring personal interest, because they all brought their own personal interest in there. We have the Invent This project, which right now we're in the process of filming, where students have to propose a project that hasn't been invented yet. They'll explain how it worked, what converged to make this product, and the selling of this product, and how it accesses the internet. They've created their scripts and their storyboards. And now here we go. We are filming this week, because homecoming week is a great week to film. Now, Genius Projects, I wrote a piece on this in February, because since the pandemic, Genius Projects I have found have even more meaning, incredible meaning with Genius Projects. So I wrote about it on Edutopia. I hope you'll take a look at it, where I have all kinds of examples. But let me give you one example. I had some students who wanted to create a simulation in Fortnite created simulating D-Day. And they actually took the rate of fire of the machine guns. They took the angles, they took everything. Now, this big picture is from the German viewpoint looking down on the beach. But they recorded video from the German viewpoint and the American viewpoint. This was the most amazing moment we had, because now remember, Fortnite Creative, you're creating. They did have to play the game, but I would say they said they spent 98% of their time building and 2% of their time playing. What they discovered was that the only way for the Americans to win at Omaha Beach would be if they would have thousands and thousands of people play as Americans, because the rate was so high of the fire coming from the German, and they were so entrenched. So after they presented, after they showed everything, it got really, really quiet in the room. And a boy in the back who's a gamer said, "Miss Davis, I think I finally understand D-Day." It was such a powerful genius project. So these kids loved Fortnite, but they also were fascinated with World War II, and we combined it to make an incredible genius project. I've had kids who have recorded um, their own music videos. I've had kids who've done all different types of things. Here's some other examples. I have students who love horses. We're in a very rural area. So I had two different sets of kids who recorded how to tack up a horse. I had some kids who love volleyball who created that. I had a student who loved Minecraft who went in Minecraft education and created a world for me that teaches kids how to use Minecraft education. Some kids who like disc golf created a great video about how to do it, as well as a student who was a chef created her own cooking videos that she posted on Instagram. So lots of different projects. Now, let's talk about how these projects can work, because I'll have a lot of these projects going at the same time in different classes. The secret is the pitch. So each project starts with a pitch to me, a short 50 to 100 word pitch on their topic, whatever it is, whatever they're pitching, whether it's their genius project, their invent this project, or their ebook. And then after I read it, I don't give a grade. I either give a green light, a yellow light, or a red light. Now, I have never had to give a red light because students will red light themselves. I will usually give a yellow light and I'll say, okay, this, and this has to change. And then I'll give you the green light, just like is done in Hollywood, because I teach digital film also. It's modeled after that method. It works so well. Once they have a green light, they get 100 on their pitch and they move forward into production. I could not do personal interest genius projects without this method. It would be impossible to do because we have to get the project to be able to be done in the amount of time I'm giving them to do it. So I help them increase or decrease their project. Yes, it requires some one-on-one meeting time. But for example, I kicked off ebooks yesterday in 7th grade. And by today, we had all of their topics agreed upon. And students yesterday were talking and they were like, this is going to be the most fun project I've ever done. And they're having so much fun writing. Even the students who said they hated writing are now excited about this project. And that's what you want. So use personal interest projects or genius projects and pull them into every single class. And I really think it's something that can be done. So our strategy number 4, we're going to go pretty quickly here. We are going to take questions at the end. So I do hope that you post your questions. We talked about GimKit earlier, lots of games in GimKit, but remember this, if all they do is play the games, you're missing the point. Go in, pull up the reports in GimKit and review the topics of the things that the kids do not understand. Use it as a formative assessment tool. Should not be used as a quiz or a test. Don't do that, please. But there's all kinds of new games coming out all the time. If it's if I have longer time to review, we'll play Farmtopia, Capture the Flag, Fishtopia. If it's a shorter time, we'll play Big Money Mode or Individual or something like that. Also, quizzes is fantastic. Now, both quizzes and GimKit lets you pull in questions from other teachers. Just make sure you check those questions because sometimes students make it and sometimes they're not right. But love quizzes. I do recommend when you use quizzes that you set those dates much further than the actual date you have in your learning management system, because sometimes you need that capability for kids to make up the work later. So Educaplay is a really cool tool. It lets you do crossword puzzles digitally and all kinds of cool things. Lots of really neat things that you can do on Educaplay. It's from Europe, so a lot of folks don't know about it over in the US, but I've used it and a lot of really cool things you can do with this app, with this tool. There's a lot of games in there. Now, my biology and science teachers swear by WordWall. WordWall lets kids do diagrams and label diagrams, and then they can do game-based learning. And you see how fast that you fill out the diagram and labeling. So it's kind of like games for where you have diagrams and labeling and that sort of thing. There's a lot of other things already built inside WordWall. Great tool. My science teachers love it, but there's other subjects that are built in WordWall also. It's definitely worth checking out. Of course, there's Kahoot. Now, my issue with Kahoot is that a lot of times kids will sit in the back and see what the answers are for kids in front of them. I prefer tools that scramble the questions and scramble the answers, which is kind of why I've moved to GimKit. Now, this is another one. This is out of Europe too, but it's free. It's classtools.net. There's even more. I couldn't fit them all on here, but there's all kinds of generators on here. They're a lot of fun. You can even do like a fake book. You can either make a free Pac-Man game. You can do all kinds of fun tools, make fish bones, make graphic organizers that you can embed, just all kinds of neat things that you can do on classtools.net. More games ideas. You've got Blookit. I believe that Kashawn is doing a tech talk on Blookit coming up. I know a lot of people who love it. Prodigy Math is a huge one that lots of math teachers are loving. GeoGuessr is geography. There's some free modes in there that you can play. I've played Classcraft before and run it a whole semester with a class. That is a great way to turn a class into a game, a lot like my friend Michael Matera does in turning up the whole class into a game. So if you're interested in doing that, it's a lot of fun. Check out Michael Matera and look at Classcraft. Of course, you can do Minecraft Education Edition. I have my students create historical amusement parks. You can see the Great Pyramids in this particular one. And NitroTyper is my favorite for typing. So now we get to the last piece, which I would say for you as a teacher and me as a teacher is the most important for us as individuals. And our students need to see us innovating. So how do we do it without getting overwhelmed? We're already too busy. We already have too much to do. And I do want to say, if you have questions, go ahead and post them in, because I had promised that we would have at least 10, maybe 15 minutes at the end for questions. I'm a classroom teacher. I'm not going to run over, but please type those in the chat. So John Sigley Brown said, you just can't drop new innovations into a classroom and hope the instructor will invent effective ways to use them. To fully utilize a new teaching technology, you need to invent new teaching practices as well. So when you use a technology tool, your teaching practices should change. They should not be the same. And so to do that, you have to innovate and grow and try to try new things. So Benjamin Franklin said, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success don't have any meaning. So if we're asking our students to grow and change every day and to learn every day, we as educators have to learn what works. Now, one thing I do is I have student focus groups, and at the end of the year, and I have them throughout the year, and I get feedback and I say, hey, what did you like the most this semester? What did you like the least? I'm always getting feedback on how I'm teaching and how I can bring my A game and do better and what they're interested in, always getting that feedback. So here's how I do it. It's 3, 2, 1. First of all, I always keep a list of my big 3. So in 2005, I'd been teaching since 2002, but I went to the GAETC conference in Georgia, and I started learning all about Web 2.0 tools at the time. I know we're in Web 3 now, but this was Web 2.0 tools, and podcasts, blogs, wikis, all these things. And I thought I had never heard them before. And I went back and I had a list of 75 things I wanted to try after that conference. And I had done none of them. So I decided enough is enough. I can't do 75 things. I can list 3. So I always keep a list of the next 3 things I want to learn. Now, here are some 3 that you might want to learn. Kashawn has been creating these 30-minute tech talks, and there is a library of useful PD on the OPSRC.net website. And he has these, I believe Tuesdays 11:30 and Thursdays at 3:30. And these are some upcoming topics. And Kashawn, here, when I get through these next couple of slides, we're going to want you to go on camera and you can talk about what's coming up. But you see you've got Gimkit, Prodigy, Blookit, and Quizlet all coming up. A great way if you put them on your big three to talk about it, right? Kashawn, you want to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy to register for them. All of them have links. And if you go to that website, at the very bottom, there's an archive of all the other tech talks I've done. I've got like 40 plus of them right now. So
Wow.
yeah,
Hey, have you done any on some of the tools I've mentioned today?
yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned some really great ones on there. Nearpod's one of my favorites, and Book Creator was one of the first tools that I was like, wow, what really cool stuff we have available.
Good. So please, this resource is free, right, Kashawn?
Yeah, anybody can go in there. You just have to register and then show up, and that's about it.
Yeah. So definitely want to go check out those talks and register. And Kashawn will be hosting these coming up, and you definitely want to check those out. So after you list your big three, and I hope you pull out some of those that you want to see that Kashawn is going to be talking about, then plan a time twice a week to learn something new. So back when I first started innovating, innovate like a turtle is what I've done since the beginning. I started calling it that about 10 years ago when I was at a conference, and a teacher literally said, "Oh, so you're saying you just turtle?" And I'm like, "Oh, I do. I innovate like a turtle." And then it just stuck. So a teacher actually came up with that. I wish I knew who it was. It just happened out of the blue in a keynote at one point. So I plan a time twice a week to learn something new. Now, this principle, my husband's an industrial engineer, is actually from the Japanese. They call it Kaizen. It is slow, steady improvement. It's the only improvement that ever really works. Because think about it. Children grow slowly and steadily. We learn slowly and steadily. It's how it works. So I didn't have a lot of time to learn, but I knew I had a break every day. And then if I would take that break 2 times a week to tinker with something new, to play with something new that was on my list, my big three, I just pick one of them and play, then I would have slow, steady improvement. I have been doing that since 2005 and have written books and traveled the world, the whole world, because of just innovating like a turtle, which is not fancy. I'm still in the classroom now for 21 years. And this is what has helped me lead at school, lead my classroom, and then also have something to talk about with all of you. And then you want to share one thing a month with somebody. So we know that to understand and to remember something, we have to teach it. So this 3-2-1 strategy of innovating like a turtle absolutely works. Keep a list of 3 things you want to try next. Now, I'm hoping and asking you guys to go into the chat, and I want you to share some of the things going on your big three. What is something I've mentioned today or something you already had on your list that you want to learn about next? Please go in the chat and share those. So keep a list of 3 things you want to try next. 2 times a week, go ahead and put that appointment on your calendar. It's like that appointment to work out. You got to have that appointment. And 1 time a month, share something with others that you've learned. And y'all, this strategy works in your life as well. I am learning to walk again and learning to get in shape again. And I have this same strategy, but it's a little bit different. I'm actually working out 6 days a week, and I have it on my schedule. I put it on my schedule. It's not optional. So this is what we covered. We covered a lot. I know, Kurt, you said you were wondering if I could get through in that amount of time. We use formative assessment constantly. That's got to be part of what we use as teachers. Let tech do what it does best. We do what we do best. Experiment with AI tools. There's a ton of them out there. If it has an algorithm, it's probably got a little bit of artificial intelligence, and there's probably already some ethical issues with it as well. Think about personal interest projects. How can you pull student interest into the class, but do it in a manageable way with the pitch process? Green light, yellow light, red light. Use games to teach. Try out Gimkit, try Blookit, try something. And then innovate like a turtle. If you don't like innovate like a turtle, find a method for personal innovation. Definitely want to do that. And connect with me on Twitter. That's actually not the right link there. I think I put the wrong link in there, but I will be sharing this at YouTube, .com/coolcatteacher. And I've got a few books out there, and I hope that you all have gotten a lot out of this. Let me end this show so that I can stop sharing my screen. It'll stop sharing my screen. Stop share. And we can go and see what folks are saying. So KS, book creator, Educaplay, and class tools. Cool. Kashawn, do you want to share your thoughts?
On which part?
You had a thought about AI.
Oh yeah, I was just really excited about how it's being used, and I didn't even realize in certain things that's already being used, and in certain tools, like it's already embedded in learning. And so I really like how you spent time on not just the tool, but just like thinking about like ethically how do you engage with that tool. So fantastic stuff.
The ethics of AI will scare you.
Mhm.
It has literally cost people jobs and left people in prison because of their skin color.
Mhm.
All types of skin and gender. It institutionalizes bias. So what it does is it studies humans to learn how to make decisions. Well, that assumes humans make good decisions. Humans are biased and they don't know it. So discussing AI, I discussed the ethics of AI all the way down with my 8th grade class and with teachers. So Donna asked the name of the app, Classcraft. There's also, there's a zombie geography game that's out there that's really hilarious. If you teach geography, it is a zombie geography game that's hilarious. Yeah, Thomas Ho, a friend of mine. I love Everfire, blogged about it before. Lots of free lesson plans there. Clever, and Canva. Canva's a great tool. Wiser, Socrative, and Educaplay. Yeah, Educaplay has a lot of different tools. Nobody said WordWall. WordWall is a great tool to play with. What other questions? We've got 5 more minutes for questions. We have GimKit. Oh, look, Dawn, Kashawn, you see that? OPSRC Tech Talks.
Yep, we
And
got
other
two coming up
ideas.
this week.
Yeah, and then Book Creator. Lots of great tools here. Kurt, what do you want to say? As we've covered a lot here, did I cover everything you wanted me to cover? You were worried, weren't you?
Absolutely. You covered a lot. There's a lot of tools to review. I'm gonna have to go back and review them all myself. Oh, great assortment. I would just recommend everybody just kind of pick one, get things started, and see where you go. Or like the list of 3 is a good thing. I'm also going to work on that.
So Dawn asked, how do I have my students create? We use Google Sites for that, Dawn. Just regular old Google Sites. I have it set so they cannot make those sites go public. And Thomas, if you just Google The Future's Faster Than You Think on YouTube, I know the first chapter is on YouTube, but I actually, when I was looking at Peter Diamandis's pages, I'm pretty sure every chapter is on there on YouTube. So take a look. But I actually, that's such a good book. I have the book. I have it on Audible. And I've watched everything. It's exciting and scary at the same time when we look at the changes happening. And we're going to see them. The robotics and knowing how to work with a cobot. My husband just put in a cobot and replaced 7 welders. It wasn't a problem though, because they couldn't hire the 7 welders. So they had 1 welder, couldn't find 7. They got a cobot, replaced 7 welders to work with 1 guy. And that cobot works a lot faster than the 7 welders did. So that's our students' futures, understanding how to work with these devices. Amazing. So Kashawn says, how do I engage my students? Okay, so you get to know them. Remember how I talked about you got to relate to educate? You've got to know your students. So that's why I started with, what are their interests? I start off the very first day. I actually use Play-Doh. And I call my room Masterpiece Theater because all my students are a masterpiece made before time began for good works. And so they each are a masterpiece. So I asked them to use Play-Doh and design something that about them that makes them a masterpiece. And I've had all kinds of crazy stuff that I learned about the kids. For example, one kid actually did a sniper rifle, which did concern me. However, her dad had a gunsmithery, and she was actually a championship shotgun shooter and got a college scholarship in shotgun. So it ended up being okay. But it's not the kind of thing she would have brought up in class, right? When she did a sniper rifle. And I did have a little concern at first. But I get to know them from the very first day. My goal on the first day is that they will go home talking about how much they love my class. But do you know what? I barely talk about my class on the first day. I just talk to them about them. You talk to somebody about them and they're going to think you're a riveting teacher. And it's all because you're interested in them. So I have to learn them before they are interested in learning my topic. So that's how it, how well do you know your kids? What are they interested in? Just because your school loves soccer doesn't mean that everybody in your school loves soccer. You should be able to look at those kids and know what each student is interested in and how to engage that student. So that is the big thing. How do we nurture that relationship, that constant feedback? I stand at the door. I call every student by name as they enter and I look them in the eye. And when I look them in the eyes every day, I can notice patterns. So I notice if a child is tired or has something up. If they have something tired, I'm like, hey, why are you tired? Or what's up? And they'll say, oh, I had a late ball game last night, or I had whatever. And then I can say, well, how did the ball game go? So how they enter the room is so very important. If you look at a lot of teachers who are remarkable, you'll notice they have a handshake for entering the classroom, or they have a special way they greet the kids, or a special way to get to know the kids. And okay. And we also have a one-to-one touchscreen laptop, and no one seems to know how to help these students move their art to the digital world. I wish they had an iPad because they could do Procreate, but they could still draw. So you need to find an app. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can draw. Can you draw in Canva? I don't think so. I think you're going to end up in one of your just regular old bitmap drawing tools like Paint. But you need just a regular old tool that you can use brushes and just draw. Dawn, I would probably have to Google what app it would be. But I mean, used to it was Paint, but there's an online, it's like paint.net or something. Maybe, Kashawn, do you know what it is? There's one for PCs that's like a web-based Paint type tool. So, but yeah, they have Chromebooks, and we have Chromebooks too. And I'll have to see what it is. If you're on Twitter, Dawn, you can tweet me, and I will tweet you back, and we'll try to find something. Okay, Kurt, I think we've answered our questions.
Amazing presentation. Thank you very much. Like I said,
Good.
a lot of tools, a lot of things to check out.
Good. Well, when you send me this, it'll probably take a day or two. I will get this up, and then you can send it out to your members, and it can be a resource as well as the slides.
Perfect. That would be great.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, these Tech Titan presentations, we're looking at doing them once a month. Because of Thanksgiving, we're probably going to do one in December. So keep a lookout on OPSRC.net. Vicki, thank you very much.
Thanks.
It was great. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.